I would pose to my fellow violinists that that your assumptions about what a kid can achieve starting late, let's say in middle school, what they can achieve in a few years, would this organization, this program, and your teaching would turn your assumptions on its head. What we have underrated as an industry and as string players, and violinists I think in particular, is what can you do with a kid who comes in 8th grade? And what is that curve, that trajectory that can be? It's much, much steeper than I would have ever thought before coming here.
Rob, welcome to Unmute the Voices.
Thank you for having me, Quinton. Excited to be here.
I'm laughing because your office is right across the hall
from here.
Steps, yes. How's it feel being on set?
It feels great. I've seen so many of these. I'm honored to be a part of the show.
All right, so we're talking about Key to Change today, an organization I founded. You work for the organization as our development officer. How's that going?
It's going well. We've had a lot of wins over the past couple of years, Quinton.
What have some of the wins been?
Well, we've gotten more sophisticated with the way we deal with our donors. We have more donors.
Yeah.
We're taking better care of our donors. We're getting to know them better, knowing what they're excited about, being able to invite them to more public events, getting them in the studio. Lots of people coming down from Seattle and other parts of Washington State to see our kids and see the performances. So yeah, we're building it out.
Yeah, we are building. We're working. What would you say kind of the funnest parts or the best parts of the job as a development officer have been?
Oh, there's a few parts. I mean, number one is the kids, the families, of course, to see them grow and to think really long term. I was in the orchestra business for a long, long time, and we think in years sometimes, like we think in seasons in the orchestra, but really you're thinking maybe 2 weeks out.
Right.
You're really thinking kind of short term. I need to prepare this, I need to prepare that, and once it's done, poof, it's gone.
Right.
But with the kids, you're really watching this progression over months, weeks, years, and thinking about where are these guys going to be, and then following them after they graduate and seeing them come back. So that's a bit more long-term thinking. That's been a lot of fun to see. But also being on frontline fundraising. So when I was in the orchestra, I would do a fair amount of like donor talks. I would give lectures. I would meet with prospective donors. I would go to dinner with donors, things like that. But that's not fundraising.
Yeah.
Fundraising is building real relationships over time. And so I think the really fun part of that as a frontline fundraiser is that the people you come in contact with, you're self-selecting. Like, there's nobody that's going to be interested in a program like this that doesn't have similar values to you.
Yeah.
And so there's a built-in foundation for friendship. If we had relationships with people the way we have with our donors in any other context, it would be friendship. These would be friends. And so you get to meet people with shared interests and shared values, and you get to give them an opportunity to invest in something, give them an opportunity to be generous, and give them an opportunity to help. And along the way, you have some really great relationships. I had a couple donor meetings yesterday, which were just fascinating. People with such varied backgrounds, and a couple of really great talks.
So why do you think then it is so difficult for people and just organizations to fundraise? Because you just made it sound like a dream job. Like it's fun to just basically make friends with people. Why is it so hard for organizations to fundraise?
That's a great question. And I've worked on the large organization side, the relatively large for our industry, multi-million-dollar organizations that have been around for a long time, on the program side as a violinist, and now working for a small startup type organization. And so some organizations, universities, symphony orchestras, art museums, have huge upfront capital costs.
Sure.
And they have to bring in enormous amounts of money every day, really, to keep the lights on. And that is a taxing way to make a living. It's a taxing way to run an organization. For an organization like Key to Change, it's almost like being on a rocket ship. Like, every piece of growth is really good news. And we're so lean here that we don't have those huge fixed costs around labor, physical plant, whatever you think about. So we really are able to take somebody's money put it to use in a way that they can see the results of.
Right.
And the sums, at least for now, the sums aren't enormous.
Right.
We don't have to have like a hedge fund like some of these organizations need with these huge endowments and these huge infrastructure. You know, the Boston Symphony or whatever, they have like 40 people raising money for that organization. So that is a scale that we're just not a part of.
But it's also, I mean, the Boston Symphony is a very large organization, right? So the larger you become, the more people you need on board, right?
So I think maybe a better way of answering your question is what makes it easy in some respects. If the mission is great, if people can see the growth, if you're reporting a lot of good news, and you're so lean that the fruits of the investment, the fruits of the donation are easily seen. And when you can talk to people about that, I think they're much closer to it than they would be for a mammoth institution like the University of Washington or something.
And so do you think that for people who have kind of shared similar values, do you think that there's more people out there who would be interested in giving if they were asked?
Absolutely. There's some interest in these things is distributed in the population. And awareness is always a hard part for a nonprofit, especially one like ours, where we're located, which part of the city that we focus on, and generating awareness. And I like to think about our donors as falling in a couple different buckets. One is the person that's really passionate about classical music, and then there's another Venn diagram circle where a person is really interested in racial equity, and then another one where people are interested in youth development. And sometimes those are completely overlapped. Rarely are they completely separate. There's some overlap. But in some of those three categories, we see our donors. And so what makes it challenging for an organization like ours, but also a great opportunity, is that our client base, the people that we truly serve, and our donors are very separate groups of people. In the orchestra, the donor base probably is approaching 100% that they are also subscribers or attendees or just ticket buyers. Whereas for us, those are very different groups of people. The rewarding part, of course, is bringing those people together to taking resources from here to apply them to there. But when someone isn't coming through your doors every weekend, when you're not selling thousands of tickets every weekend, you're not an art museum where your doors are open to the public, 9 to 5, 7 days a week or 6 days a week, whatever it is.
Right.
You have a constant churn of potential donors every time they come to the door. Here it's a little different, and that's a challenge. But of course, when you make those connections, people are thrilled.
So what are the benefits of donating to an organization like Key to Change?
The benefits are that the change is real and you can witness it. There is, in a lot of fine arts, the work is about preservation. We're preserving this particular tradition. Even the new stuff, like new classical music or new art, is still in a tradition, and you're preserving the way of making that thing. Whereas there's an action in a place like this. There is an evolution. And so if you believe in the power of the arts, classical music, the fine arts, visual arts, dance, whatever, if you believe in that capacity to change lives, then you put your money in a place like this because you know that it's going to good use. Many kids in America have access to the fine arts. We know that it's a lot easier in more affluent communities. And so if you believe that those same attributes, the same benefits that those kids get would have benefits in these communities, you should want to see that. You should want to make sure that the access is available. And as a community is under-resourced or underserved, we know that whether it's rural or urban, that your world is a little shrunken. It's insular. We know that people aren't very mobile physically, and they're also not economically mobile. But what does the arts do? It literally gets you moving. It gets you to a different place. It gets you to Seattle. It gets you to the art museum. It gets you to Meany to see a concert. We've taken kids to Boston to see performances and to see you give classes. We hope to do more of those things.
Yeah.
But it also opens up a part of your imagination. It opens up a part of your thinking. You get exposed to a tradition that goes back 400 or 500 years. You get to understand in a tactile way how to make this music, how to generate something creative. And so there is a literal mobility that comes from getting out of your environment, getting out of your school, meeting kids from different schools that you would never meet under any other circumstances. And like we were talking about with donors, you have a shared interest, the violin and viola, and music.
But what about those donors who don't play the violin or who might say, oh, classical music is really not my thing? How does one, why should someone who maybe doesn't know anything about classical music or really care about classical music, the violin or the viola specifically, give to Key to Change? Why should they still give?
Well, I think
if they don't have a connection with the instrument.
Well, you should care about your community. You should care about your country. You should care about the future of the kids that are coming up through it. And look, if a donor were to come to me and say all those things and say, I just don't get it. I don't understand why the violin is important for these kids or this music. I will help you find the philanthropic priority that will meet your needs. We'll talk about it together.
Sure.
But ultimately, you think about return on investment, the way you would for any other investment, where you put your money towards something, you expect some return on value that's greater than the paper or the credit card that you're handing over. And in an organization like this, you can have confidence that the place that you're in, you are producing better citizens. You're producing better neighbors. You're producing people that have the capacity to relate to each other. There's no better way to learn to build consensus or to put yourself in somebody else's shoes than through the arts, seeing the world in a different way. So yes, maybe you don't know much about the violin, maybe you don't listen to much Mozart, but if you care about your community, you should be investing in kids and the opportunities in their, obviously in school, pay your taxes, support the local schools in any way you can. But the after school programs, the after the bell programs they fill the gaps that the schools could never fill. Look, my mother was a public school teacher. I have nothing but incredible admiration for the heroic work that our friends and colleagues in the public schools do, but they can't do everything.
Right.
Organizations like this fill those needs. And whether it's playing golf, whether it's playing the violin, whether it's mentorship or tutoring after schools, these programs create a better nation. You want to see the world that you want to live in? Donate to the nonprofit sector and the organizations that are doing work that they can prove their impact.
So then how can individuals and businesses get involved in supporting an organization like Key to Change?
Well, the individual level is quite simple. If you have a passion or even an interest in seeing your community have the resources and the opportunities to improve, then simply just give. You know, your cash goes a long way. I know it's simple, but really, you know, we are like any other business, and we need capital resources to fund the programming that makes a difference in the lives of these students and their families. Businesses gets a little bit more creative in the sense that, well, what are you doing in the community? What product or service are you providing? And how does it align with kids? So a lot of our corporate sponsors at this point have some connection with building through architecture that in the public school system. They're making their money by building the literal infrastructure that kids learn in. But they know that those kids go someplace after the bell. And so a lot of them have been very excited to partner with us to help us with through donations and sponsorships of our different events. As you know, we've put together a handful of different packages to support scholarships for our most advanced students, the material needs for maintaining and purchasing instruments. We fly in guest artists from around the country to come and work with our kids. So there's different sponsorship opportunities, and whatever aligns with whatever your particular budget is for giving, we have an option for. But also, perhaps I would really like to see this thing happen. But also, you know, down the road, some businesses have particular expertise in an area. You know, I was talking with our friends at Cornerstone General Contractors, and they were telling me about how sometimes organizations that serve kids need a particular structure. I mean, like maybe not a building, but a gazebo or a stage, and their guys can come in and do that no problem, right? So there's those opportunities to use your particular corporate capacity and skills capacity, core competencies to build something or to use your skills to help work with things. But at the end of the day, finding an area of shared interest and putting your money behind that is the best way to help a nonprofit thrive.
What do you say to those individuals who might say, oh, it's a startup nonprofit organization, you know, they're small, they don't really need much money, or I want to see how they do over the next couple of years before I invest. Like, what do you say to kind of more skeptics who might be nervous about donating to an organization like Key to Change?
It's a great question. I try to work my way through a good answer on it. I think a certain amount of skepticism is healthy. Mm-hmm. We've seen in recent months some really damning articles about the nonprofit sector. That I think it was called the nonprofit industrial complex. And some of the things were right here in Seattle about abuses of money, resources going to not where, and sometimes actually counteracting the thing that they're supposed to be doing, like affordable housing, that and serving the unhoused. That there are people kind of creating jobs for themselves and not really getting any work done. There's an element to building trust, whether it's between two people or between an organization and its community, that can't be faked. And that's going to take some time. I think with an organization like ours, again, saying we don't have an open door in the way a museum or a symphony orchestra does, but we do create opportunities for people to come and see. So if you're skeptical, come and see the thing. I mean, yes, it's great to get the email updates. Yes, it's great to get the occasional mailer. But if you really want to know if people are doing what they say they're doing, come and see.
Right.
And I would offer anyone to contact me about coming to one of our public events, because we'd love for people to come and see, because there's no better ambassador for our program than the kids.
Unmute the Voices is sponsored by Key to Change Studio. Key to Change Studio is a violin and viola studio located in Renton, Washington, which allows middle and high school underserved students living in South King County an opportunity to take violin or viola lessons. For more information, visit their website at keytochangestudio.org. Now, back to Unmute the Voices. How does Key to Change differ from other kind of music programs that also provide lessons? And what would you say are some of Key to Change's competitive advantages?
I think what makes Key to Change special is it's a place-based organization. We're focused on South King County and the cities within South King County. And so we're serving this population here. We get to meet different kinds of people from all different kinds of walks of life in this community, because we do public events, because we do community events, because our kids are playing in large performances here in Renton or at the Highline School District, in various places that attract large audiences. And so I think that's pretty unique, certainly in a place like this, that we are enough of a magnet that we are attracting the partnerships of larger arts and cultural organizations. I think the competitive advantage is that there is, I would pose to my fellow violinists that, that your assumptions about what a kid can achieve starting late, let's say in middle school, what they can achieve in a few years, this organization, this program, and your teaching would turn your assumptions on its head. So, I've seen some extraordinary outliers in people who have started in their teens and have gone on to become quite fine violinists and great violinists in a few categories. But it's very, very rare. I don't think anyone would argue with that. But what we have underrated as an industry and as string players and violinists, I think in particular, is what can you do with a kid who comes in 8th grade? And what is that curve, that trajectory that can be? It's much, much steeper than I would have ever thought before coming here. And so to say that a kid from this community that may not have a strong cultural connection to classical music can get a violin under their chin and within months, in a few years, get to a level of competency that you would expect more like a decade. And that this organization, because of who you are and your connections and just the prowess of the kids, that they can do things like stand in front of an orchestra and play a movement of a concerto from memory, top to bottom, with no real technical problems. Now, are they playing the Barber Concerto? No, not quite, but they're playing, not yet. They will at some point. Yeah. But these kids, I'm talking about the ones that have been playing for 3 years.
Sure. There's a trajectory.
But they're playing repertoire, and they're playing it well. They're set up perfectly. They're playing it in tune, and they have the the poise, I get whatever the word it is,
Yeah.
and the preparation to stand up there and do it.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy.
It is crazy.
I told you when you started working for me, I'm crazy.
Well, when I came out, so about 2 years ago, almost to the day probably, to work with the kids at the festival, I couldn't believe it my first. And you told me this kid's been playing for a year and a half.
Yeah.
This kid's been playing for 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not really many other people who are, at least to my knowledge, who are doing it, who are putting kids really on a fast track.
No, I don't think
know.
that. I don't think they are. I don't think they know how. But I also, again, I would go back to the assumption that maybe if the kid is 13, maybe we should give them a trumpet, or maybe we should give them a clarinet or something.
So why do you think that is? You know, why do you think it is that there are not more people who are willing to invest? And I'm talking about musicians right now, like more musicians who are willing to invest the time and energy in kids who are interested in playing the violin, but might be older than when a child generally would start.
Well, because it's hard, right? And there's a convenience factor to starting
But
somebody.
playing the violin is hard.
Well, that's what I
just
mean.
in
The violin is
general.
hard. That's what I'm saying. The violin is hard.
Yeah.
It may be harder to get started. That the first period of learning and growth is probably a little slower than it is for a lot of other instruments. And there's a convenience factor, I think, to kind of pushing a kid towards an instrument which you can make a sound on, a piano or a guitar.
Sure.
And again, these instruments are incredibly hard. I don't want to get into which is harder, but there
Yeah.
is a high barrier to starting and sounding good on the violin.
Yeah.
And you've helped through a certain amount of relatability, great teaching pedagogical techniques, and a certain charisma with the kids, have been able to convince them that they too can
Yeah.
make a nice sound.
Yeah,
And if you get them started on that, I won't say the sky is the limit, but that there is a much faster trajectory than you think. And I think a lot of us who have been playing the violin their whole lives, or came up in this culture, it's like, you give a kid a violin and let me check back with you in 10 years and see how you're doing. But with you, it's like, let me check back in a few weeks and let's see what kind of progress there's been made.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable. But the kids are the ones who do the work, really.
Well, I've seen you really put the extra time in, and remember, key to change. And I say this to donors sometimes. It's like a quasi-conservatory environment. The kids are coming multiple times a week, 2-3 times a week. They're getting private lessons. They're getting group classes. They're playing for each other. They're playing for guest artists, and they're preparing for some performance down the road. And so it's not like the one-off lesson per week where a lot of time can go. A lot of things can go unchecked in those 6 or 7 days.
Yeah.
And with the kids coming back every day, they're in an immersive environment where they're surrounded by learning all the time.
Just you saying that they're in an immersive environment where they're learning all the time. I mean, that's what I think as adults we want for kids that go to school, is that they're learning all the time. And I think that especially the population of students that we serve, which are underserved, that sometimes that's not happening in their lives, right? And so by them coming here, we're able to provide an environment where, whether it's learning the violin or just learning a life skill here, I think really contributes to their success and to their progress.
Yeah, my grandmother was a violinist. She was the daughter of Italian immigrants growing up in Western Massachusetts. And so strong cultural connection to classical music. And she was a violinist. She went to Boston University, got an ed degree, and music ed degree. But she used to say, school or music, and music was a part of the schooling, and certainly for me it was, is your job, right? You take this your schoolwork, you're practicing is like it's an analogy, it's a metaphor, it's your job. And what I've seen in the kids here is that accountability that you see in a good workforce, right? I don't want to let my coworkers down. I don't want to let my peers down. If, one of our graduates, Malak, we used to like to talk about how you can't hide in the music classroom the way you can hide in the school classroom. And so if you're the weak link in the group class, everybody knows it.
Yeah. What would you say are some of the challenges that our students have faced here, and how has Key to Change helped them overcome any of the challenges from your experience?
The challenges there's probably myriad challenges for these kids, and each one is different. I think about some kids that may be coming from a really chaotic environment, or they may have just not a lot of money, but they have a great family structure. You know, every kid is very, very different, and their circumstances are very, very different. I think that the challenges are probably the things that you don't necessarily always think about. What is holding this particular student back? And I think the way Key to Change helps them is that there's a place for them to come and be with other kids that are outside of their immediate environment. They're able to talk to faculty members and teachers and staff members about whatever they want to talk about. Some of my biggest thrills is when a kid wants to talk to me about anything but music, right? They want to talk to me about their history assignment. They want to talk to me about so we do the informal parts of Key to Change are probably maybe the hardest to measure by definition.
Sure.
But maybe some of the most impactful, where it's the sort of connective tissue between the lesson and school and walking in the door or the concert, those moments for a place for a kid to know that they're not alone, that there are other kids like them, and that there is a place for them to help them, prop them up. And maybe in some extreme examples, I don't know too many details because, you know, it's someone's personal life, but really thinking that, making the assumption that someone was doing great, but finding out they were really struggling, and then providing opportunity for them to make a corrective action, and catch up on what they needed to catch up on, and a place to do it in. And had that not been here, the path that kid would have gone down was very, very different than the very positive one that they're on.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about master classes. We've had a number of guest artists who've come here, you know, over the years and given master classes. You've, you know, came originally as a guest artist yourself, and coached our students. And so can you talk a little bit about what the student experience is of working with guest artists in master classes, and then also the importance of why we have guest master classes for our students here?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's great for the program, I think, on a superficial level, that you have, let's just start there, that people can come in.
Yeah.
There's a certain awareness that somebody from the outside comes in, sees the work that we're doing, helps spread the word. I think, and the other part is that when you're a kid and you get into a certain groove with your teacher, and that there's a certain comfort level that happens over time, and to break that up, that's important. It's nerve-wracking to play for somebody new.
Yeah.
And you find that all that practicing you did this week kind of went out the window because you got a little nervous, and that's a really good thing to learn. You know, when I was a student in college, I got to study with Dorothy DeLay, and I remember her saying, like, Sugar Plum, you know, all the work you're doing during the week, you come in and it's like disappears. I can see it in you, like you tensing up and all this sort of stuff. And part of learning to play well is to be able to do it on repeat. And what you need to do is have some variation in your routine. And so having guest artists come in creates that variation because they get very comfortable with you, or they get very comfortable with Jeffrey, or any guest that they may see regularly. But you can see that there's a certain self-consciousness that you have to get through as an artist. You have to get through your self-consciousness. But again, I go back to the idea of expanding your universe. One of the benefits of Key to Change is that even if the kid isn't really leaving South King County too much, or they're maybe commuting from Kent to here or whatever, they're getting a perspective, a face-to-face perspective with people who are traveling all around the world, who are seeing the industry all around the world. They're bringing a new, valuable perspective to this place. We are bringing those people to this place instead of exporting our kids all across Seattle or wherever they would need to go to get those lessons. So I think that flow and churn of people and ideas is critical to that masterclass series. That each year, each month almost, you can predict that some new face is going to come in with some new perspective, and they're going to bring something to us, and they're going to take something away from this experience that they're going to share around the world.
What do you think the experience of the guest artists that we've had here, what do you feel that has been in just what you've witnessed?
Again, I think that there is a certain disbelief that the kids have only been playing for a certain amount of time. And so sometimes they make assumptions that the kids are actually a little bit more sophisticated with the jargon and all these directions than they are. The cues that the teacher is getting from the way the kid is set up and the way they're playing is someone who's been serious about the instrument for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, where often cases it's much, much shorter than that. So I think that there is a defying the expectations around what is possible. And of course, opening up, these guest artists that have, really robust performance careers and they're busy. And they have a lot of competing demands on their time, that perhaps through your influence with the reputation of Key to Change that they come here and they see a whole nother world and a whole nother set of possibilities about who could become the future artists in this field, who are going to become the future donors, who are going to be the future audiences. We talk about this stuff in the field. I was in the 20 plus years. We talk about this stuff all the time. But we had no real way of activating it in some new way. And I think that's what's special about Key to Change is the evidence is right in front of your eyes.
My final question for you is, can you share more about the importance of our annual fundraiser, especially for those who are unfamiliar with Key to Change?
Well, like I said at the beginning, organizations like this don't have a tremendous amount of public events. So we have more and more, but we have this one big event. And it's an opportunity to see all the hard work that the kids have put in. A lot of their work is leading up to this. So this stage, when they take the stage to talk about themselves, to play their instruments and receive awards, well-deserved and hard-earned awards, it's an opportunity to see the full scale and scope of the organization and the rich tapestry of kids that come into this, little ones, big ones, all the whole range of kids that are in this program and benefiting from it.
Yeah.
And on another level, you get to meet fellow supporters. And again, we nonprofit organizations oftentimes are bonding organizations. They bring people of like mind together or very similar backgrounds together, which isn't always a great thing. I mean, sometimes it reinforces negative things. We like to say, oftentimes we just want people to come together for the right reasons. That said, we are a bridging organization, that the donors are in some ways as diverse as the kids. And you want to meet people from all walks of life, from different parts of town, from different professions and different interests, but have this one shared interest. And you can express those values together by coming and meeting your fellow supporters, getting to see the kinds of people out there that are passionate, patriotic, invested in their community, and to see what it's like to be a part of that. These organizations, at the very heart of them, in some ways, is just to bring people together.
Right.
And what better way than to come to one of our city's most iconic venues, right downtown, in one of the best acoustics you're ever going to ever be in, and to hear our kids perform, and meet people that are just like you, even though they might look different, or they might be a different age, a different generation, or from a different part of town, but all have this shared passion for making their community better.
Rob, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Quinton.
Yeah. I really appreciate you taking the chance and joining me in this work.
That's been the honor of a lifetime.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun, and to see the growth in our students and just the operations of the organization and how we've been able to grow, especially since you first started. I think it's been great. We're continuing to grow, and it's been a lot of fun. Running this organization and building it with you. So,
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you as well for watching this episode of Youth Voices. I'm Dr. Quinton Morris. Enjoy your day.